Wherever you are, please join me in welcoming our distinguished panel. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi. Hello.
They're coming to us from all over the place, so we're incredibly lucky. Benedict and Jared, you guys both worked with very well-known big deal directors on your films, Jane Campion for Benedict and Ridley Scott for Jared. Did you walk in there, as I was asking Javier before, did you walk in there having an expectation of what it would be like to work with them? I mean, did they surprise you? Did they put their own stamp on the films?
Jane is such a sort of iconic presence in cinematic culture. She's an incredibly powerful woman who's been at the forefront of her game for decades. And, you know, I'd say about this film, yeah, it's a Jane Campion film, but she's tackling a subject matter which has appeared in her films before, in the sense of toxic masculinity. Doing it front and center and really analysing it in a way that scared her to the point that we kind of collaborated on discovering and excavating this character of Phil Burbank that I play together, which I'd never had that experience with a director, to sort of work in tandem with them to kind of get to that point of lift off on that first day.
Benedict, in The Power of the Dog, you're playing this rough and ready cowboy. He can be brutal at times, not a nice guy, to put it politely. But there are some sort of subtle things you did with him. For instance, when I was watching it, I was wondering why he didn't drop his G's on his gerunds. He wouldn't say, we're riding into town. He'd say, we're riding into town. And then it turns out there's an explanation for that. So can you talk a little bit about unpeeling those layers of him, making those decisions with Jane Campion?
As far as unlocking Phil, thank you for noticing not dropping the G's. That was that was some serious thought about somebody who, while talking and dressing like folk to an extent, and really trying to disguise his wealth in that way, or his sort of lineage, he was the son of East Coast Brahmins, so definitely someone who had a fine classical education at an Ivy League university, so a scholar to boot, despite being covered in blood for most of the film. I discovered that he was a child. He was still someone who is in utter arrested development, and it smacked me full in the face. I just did a scene that's quite late in the film, so I won't necessarily say what it's about, just because I don't know, you know, just to protect the work and people who haven't seen it yet. But he just loses his mind and his temper in a way that reminded me a lot of some scenes at home, and three boys. I just want to say, I mean, you know, someone who's never done any singing, well, professionally or anything like that. Hats off to all of you. Oscar, I mean, you're an amazing musician, as are you, Jared, and I've heard your music. The first time we met, Oscar, you and I were jamming at some place in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow.
And it was an amazing thing to watch you do it in the flesh, having watched Llewellyn. But I mean, I think, you know, there's so much going on. You have to convince and storytell and inhabit a moment with such a great degree of other layers of technical skill. Hats off. And maybe this is the moment that you guys have all inspired me to do some singing. I mean, I'm in the Roundtable. I did, it wouldn't be called singing, but it was the most near I've ever come to having a heart attack. I stepped on to do at the very end of a Pink Floyd gig. David Gilmour persuaded me to come on and do the Roger Waters part in Comfortably Numb, which is, as you know, it's like the comparison of singing. It's like, hello, it's hardly singing. But I was looking at the guys in the florries and wondering where the Crash team was, because I just thought I was going to die. And, that was in front of 5,000 people, but still, it's nothing compared to doing it properly. And for a whole film, to do it in front of a crew and to do it in front of a concert crowd. I mean, yeah, so you guys are all my inspiration from that point of view.